The crystal glasses still trembled with the echo of those words, when from the least expected corner of the ballroom came the voice of someone who should never have spoken. This unimaginable clash, silent yet brutal, exposed the cracks in the empire of a woman who never tolerated dissent, but what seemed like mere impulse was the beginning of something no one there would have dared to predict. Chapter 1. The winter fog settled upon Boston, heavy as a thick curtain, when inside the luxurious Grand Beacon Hotel, a voice rang out, chilling the blood of everyone present. Jennifer Smith, owner of the hotel chain, stood in the marble lobby, her voice cutting the air like a knife blade. "No one is going to tell me what to do." Her eyes blazed with fury as she turned on the terrified manager who had dared to question her decision to lay off 3 employees right before Christmas. Guests passing through the hall paused, gazing with curiosity and apprehension at the scene unfolding before them. Jennifer, clad in a black Chanel suit, looked like the queen of a territory she had dominated with her own 2 hands. Her long dark hair was pulled back into an elegant bun, and around her neck gleamed a pearl necklace, the one her mother had given her for her 18th birthday, the only keepsake from the past she couldn't bring herself to discard. She was 31, but her eyes seemed older, carrying a pain she meticulously hid beneath a mask of cold aloofness. She had built a hotel empire, taking over a small family inn in Aspen from her parents and transforming it into a network of luxury properties scattered across the United States. Every decision was hers, every word, law, every objection, a betrayal. "Ms. Smith," the manager began, his voice trembling, "but procedure requires—" "Procedure," Jennifer cut him off sharply, her voice echoing off the marble walls like a sound in a cathedral. "I create the procedures in my hotels. I decide who stays and who goes. Do you understand?" The manager, a man in his 50s with grey hair and tired eyes, nodded, but his face expressed utter despair. Those 3 employees were people with families, with mortgages, with children waiting for the holidays. But Jennifer didn't see faces. She saw only figures on a balance sheet, only costs that needed cutting. "I understand, Miss Smith," the manager said quietly, "but maybe we could wait until the new year. It's just a couple of weeks." "No!" Jennifer exploded, slamming her hand down on the marble reception desk. The sound resonated through the entire lobby like a gunshot. "Business doesn't wait for the holidays. Business has no heart." At that moment, from the depths of the lobby, where beyond the sheen of marble and gold accents appeared a man in a Navy janitor's uniform. He was about 35, with close-cropped brown hair and calm blue eyes that resembled the sky over the Rockies on a clear day. His hands were calloused, scarred from hard work, but he held his mop with the dignity of a man who wasn't ashamed of his trade. A small name tag on his uniform read, Michael Johnson. For the last half hour he had been mopping the floors in the back section of the lobby, but he had heard every word of the row. He watched the manager shrink under the barrage of insults, saw the other employees avert their gaze, saw the guests hurry past not wanting to witness someone's humiliation, and he'd had enough. He simply had had enough. "That's enough," he said calmly but firmly, setting down his mop and stepping closer. His voice was low but carried well through the space. "You can yell at whoever you want, but not in front of me." The silence that fell was so profound, one could hear the ticking of the grand clock standing in the corner of the hall, brought by Jennifer's grandfather decades ago. The guests froze. The manager turned white as a sheet, and the waiters held their breath. No one, absolutely no one, dared to speak to Jennifer Smith in such a manner. Not since she took control of the company after her parents' death. Not since she became the Iron Lady of the American hospitality industry. But she herself, to everyone's surprise, did not immediately explode. Instead, something appeared in her eyes that no one had seen in 5 years. Surprise. For the first time in a very long time, someone hadn't retreated before her wrath, hadn't dropped their gaze, hadn't started to grovel. "What did you say?" she asked quietly, as if she couldn't believe her own ears. Her voice lost its sharpness, becoming more human. "I said that's enough," Michael repeated, holding her gaze. "This man is just doing his job. He's trying to show you humanity, and you're treating him like dirt." Jennifer felt something inside her twitch. Since the death of her parents in a car accident 5 years ago, no one had dared to contradict her. She had built a wall of ice and authority around herself that protected her from pain, but also isolated her from all people. This wall was her fortress and her prison all at once. "You have no idea who you're talking to," she said, trying to regain control, but her voice sounded uncertain. "I'm talking to a woman who forgot how to be human," Michael replied calmly. Someone who thinks money can replace a heart. Shock ran through Jennifer like an electric current. No one, absolutely no one, spoke to her like this. Not since that night the police came with news of the accident. Not since the day she stood alone against the world, turning her grief into ruthlessness, her love into cold ambition. The manager, seeing the tension, whispered to the security guard to prepare for intervention. But Jennifer raised her hand, stopping them. Something in this man's eyes made her want to listen more. "How do you know," she began slowly, fighting the tremor in her voice, "what it means to be human?" "Because I have a daughter," Michael replied, and his voice softened like a spring drizzle. "And every day I teach her how to treat people with respect, how to see others not as obstacles or numbers, but as living people with dreams and fears." Those words struck Jennifer harder than any shout or accusation. A daughter, a family, what she never had the chance to create, because all her energy, all her love, she put into building an empire that was supposed to replace everything she had lost. "How old is she?" she asked, not knowing why the question was so important. 8, Michael replied, and his eyes lit up. "Her name is Sarah. She's the bravest person I know." Jennifer felt a strange pang in her heart, as if someone had touched an old wound. Sarah, the same name as her deceased younger sister who died with their parents. Little Sarah, who was only 6 when Jennifer's world collapsed like a house of cards. For a moment, the world around her swayed, and the wall she had so carefully built for 5 years seemed to crack. "Where is she now?" She heard her own voice as if from far away. "In the hospital," Michael said, and his eyes darkened. "She has severe asthma. The meds are very expensive, that's why I work here, and a second job, sometimes 16 hours a day." Jennifer felt her world stop for a moment. This man, who dared to defy her, who stood up in defense of a total stranger, did it not out of arrogance or insolence, but out of the dignity that flowed from the love for his child. He fought for every penny, worked to exhaustion, ruining his hands and back, but he neither bent before her power nor sold his soul for an easier life. "Are you a widower?" she asked, although she shouldn't have. It wasn't her business. It wasn't a conversation she should be having with an employee. "My wife passed away 3 years ago," Michael said quietly. "Cancer. It's just me and Sarah, but we haven't given up." In that moment, Jennifer understood that she stood before someone who, like her, knew the pain of loss. But unlike her, he hadn't allowed that pain to turn him into stone. He hadn't allowed sorrow to kill his capacity to love. "I apologize for all of that," she said, gesturing toward the scene that had unfolded moments ago. "I shouldn't have." "It's not about me," Michael cut her off. "It's about that man," he pointed to the manager. "About those 3 people you want to fire. About their families. They have kids waiting for the holidays too." Jennifer looked at the manager, who still stood pale as a ghost. For the first time in years, she saw in him not a subordinate, not a cost on the balance sheet, but a man with his own problems, fears, hopes. "Mr. Johnson is right," she said to the manager, her voice now different, quiet, filled with something that hadn't been there in years. "I apologize for my behavior. Those layoffs are rescinded. Please continue your work." The manager nodded, too stunned to reply. The other employees exchanged bewildered glances. This was not the Jennifer Smith they knew. "And you," she addressed Michael. "When do you finish your shift today?" "Midnight," he replied, still holding her gaze. "Then I drive to the hospital to check on Sarah." "Midnight? And your next shift?" 6 a.m. at the downtown location. 2 hours of sleep is plenty." Jennifer felt as if someone had squeezed her heart in an iron gauntlet. This man worked 20 hours a day to provide his daughter with treatment. "Please come to my office tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., she said. "I want to talk to you." "About what?" "About how to be human." Michael stared at her for a long moment, trying to guess her intentions. He saw something in her eyes that surprised him. Genuine curiosity, genuine pain, genuine need. "Fine," he said finally. "But first, I need to finish my shift and visit my daughter." "Of course," Jennifer replied, and her voice held a note of warmth for the first time in 5 years. "And you, what should I call you?" "Michael. Just Michael." "Michael," she repeated, as if tasting the name. "Thank you, Michael." "For what?" "For reminding me that I am human." When Michael walked away, continuing his work, Jennifer stood in the lobby for a long time, staring at the spot where he had disappeared among the gold columns. Something within her had changed, as if someone had opened a window in the stuffy room she had lived in for 5 years. For the first time since her family's death, she felt something that seemed impossible. Hope. Chapter 2. The next day at 9 a.m., Michael Johnson knocked on Jennifer Smith's office door. He hadn't slept that night. After finishing his shift, he went to the hospital where Sarah had another asthma attack. He sat by her bed until morning, holding her small hand in his, listening to her labored breathing and praying to a God he sometimes doubted still heard him. But at 9 he was here precisely on time. He always kept his word. "Come in," he heard a voice from behind the door. He entered the elegant office on the top floor of the hotel. Jennifer sat behind a mahogany desk that was larger than the entire kitchen in his apartment in the old industrial district near the river. She was wearing a grey blazer, and her hair was down, which made her look younger, more human. On the desk were 3 phones, a computer, and a stack of documents thicker than a phone book. "Good morning," Michael said, standing hesitantly in the doorway. He felt like an intruder in a world he didn't belong to. "Punctual," Jennifer observed, looking up from her contracts. "Please sit down. Can I get you coffee?" "Thank you, I don't drink coffee," he replied, sitting cautiously on the leather chair that probably cost more than his monthly salaries at both jobs. "Tea? Maybe a glass of water." Jennifer pressed a button on the intercom. "Susan, please bring a glass of water." They sat in silence for a moment. Jennifer observed the man who had changed something in her life yesterday. In the daylight, he looked tired, but his eyes retained the same calm determination. "How is your daughter feeling?" she asked. "Better this morning," Michael replied, and his face brightened. "The new medication helps, but it's expensive," Jennifer finished. "Very." The secretary brought the water. Michael thanked her by name. "Thank you, Ms. Susan," which clearly surprised her. No one from the executive level ever bothered to remember the names of rank-and-file employees. "Michael," Jennifer began when they were alone, "I wanted to offer you something unusual. I'm listening." "I need someone to help me remember how to be human," she said, standing up and walking to the window that overlooked the city skyline. "Someone who isn't afraid to tell me the truth." Michael didn't reply, waiting for more explanation. "I'll hire you as my personal advisor," she said, turning back to him. "You will accompany me to business meetings, on trips. The salary will be sufficient to provide your daughter with the best medical care." "Why?" Michael asked directly. Jennifer sat back down, looking him straight in the eyes. In her gaze was a sincerity she hadn't shown anyone in years. "Because you have what I've been searching for 5 years. The courage to remain human despite the pain. The courage to love despite the loss. And I have the means to help your daughter." "That sounds like a business deal," Michael said cautiously. "It is a business deal," Jennifer admitted, "but an honest one. You teach me humanity, and I'll secure Sarah the best treatment." Michael remained silent for a long time, looking out the window at the city waking up to life. He saw people rushing to work, students heading to university, mothers taking their children to school. A normal life he hadn't been a part of for 3 years. "I have a condition," he finally said. "I'm listening. I won't be your employee. I'll be your friend. And friends tell each other the truth even when it hurts." Jennifer felt a strange shiver. A friend. She had employees. She had business contacts. She had acquaintances. But a friend she'd had, well, never, really. "Agreed," she said quietly. "And one more thing. I want Sarah to get to know you. She'll be part of this friendship. But I don't know anything about kids." "Then you'll learn," Michael interrupted her with a smile. "Sarah is the best teacher of humanity I can imagine." 3 hours later, they were sitting in a hospital room where Sarah Johnson lay in a small bed, surrounded by stuffed animals and colorful drawings taped to the walls. The girl had light hair like her mother's and blue eyes like her father's, but above all she had a smile that lit up the entire room. "Daddy," Sarah called out when she saw them. "Is this the lady you were talking about?" "Hello, Sarah," Jennifer said, approaching the bed uncertainly. "My name is Jennifer." "Like a queen," the girl cheered, clapping her hands. "Daddy said you're very important and very sad." Jennifer looked at Michael, surprised. "Kids see more than we think," he said with a smile. "Why are you sad?" Sarah asked with childlike directness. Jennifer sat down on the chair beside the bed, not knowing how to answer. How could she explain 5 years of mourning, 5 years of anger, 5 years of solitude to an 8-year-old child? "I lost my family," she finally said quietly. "A long time ago." "Oh," Sarah said seriously. "That's very sad. I lost my mommy too." "I know. Your daddy told me." "But I have daddy," Sarah added with a smile. "And now maybe I'll have an auntie." Jennifer felt a strange lump in her throat. This child, who fought for every breath daily, who lost her mother, who lived in a hospital, this child was offering her a family. "Would you like to have an auntie?" she asked in a whisper. "Very much," Sarah replied, reaching out her small hands. "Aunties can read stories, right?" Jennifer took the small hands in hers and felt a warmth she hadn't felt in years. A warmth of unconditional love, the kind you wouldn't find in any business contract. "They can," she said, and a tear rolled down her cheek. "Why are you crying?" Sarah asked, concerned. Sometimes we cry when we're happy, Michael explained, also fighting back tears. They spent the next 2 hours reading fairy tales and playing games. Sarah talked about school, about how she wanted to become a doctor to help other kids. Jennifer listened, fascinated by the simplicity and wisdom of this little person who saw the world through eyes untainted by adult pain. "Auntie Jen," Sarah said suddenly. "Yes? Can you stay with us forever?" Jennifer looked at Michael, who was watching the entire scene with quiet emotion. "I don't know if that's possible," she replied honestly. "Why not?" "Because Auntie and Daddy are very different people. Auntie is rich, and Daddy is—" "But that doesn't matter," Sarah interrupted her. "The only thing that matters is loving each other. Mommy told me that." Coming from this child, those words sounded like a revelation. Jennifer looked at Michael and saw in his eyes the same thing she felt in her heart, something that had nothing to do with money, social standing, or the differences between them. "Sarah is right," Michael said quietly. "Mommy would be proud of her." When the nurse came with the evening medication, it was time to say goodbye. "Will you come tomorrow?" Sarah asked Jennifer. "I will," she answered without hesitation. "Promise?" "I promise." "And will you be my auntie forever?" Jennifer looked at Michael, who nodded with a smile. "Forever," she said. As they left the hospital, they walked silently side by side through the cold December evening. For the first time in years, Jennifer didn't think about work, contracts, or profits. She thought about the little girl who offered her a family and the man who showed her that it was possible to love again. "Jennifer," Michael said quietly, stopping under a lamppost. "Yes." "What Sarah said about staying forever." "I know it's complicated," she interrupted him. "We're from different worlds." "That's not it," he cut her off, stepping closer. "It's that for the first time since my wife died, I feel like I can love again." Jennifer felt her heart skip a beat. "And for the first time since my family died, I feel like I can live again," she whispered. He leaned in and gently kissed her forehead. "So maybe Sarah is right," he said. "Maybe the only thing that matters is love." But neither of them expected that their world would soon be turned upside down. Chapter 3. The weeks passed like a dream Jennifer didn't want to wake up from. For the first time in 5 years, her life had a rhythm, not solely tied to work. Every day ended at the hospital, where she and Michael spent time by Sarah's bedside. The girl had become a window to a world Jennifer had never known, a world of selfless joy, childlike honesty, and simple love. "Auntie Jen, look!" Sarah called out one December day, showing a drawing she had worked on all afternoon. "It's our Christmas tree." The paper showed a huge pine adorned with colorful ornaments, and beneath it 3 people holding hands: a tall man in a blue sweater, a woman in an elegant dress, and a little girl in a pink dress in the middle. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Jennifer said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "But you know we'll be spending Christmas here, in the hospital." "I know," Sarah replied with a smile that lit up the whole room. "But it's okay. The most important thing is that we'll be together." Jennifer felt her heart clench with pain and happiness at the same time. This child, who was spending the holidays in a hospital room, wasn't thinking about what she didn't have, but about what she had, most importantly, family. "Sarah," Jennifer said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Don't you miss your mom, especially now before Christmas?" Sarah thought for a moment, playing with the stuffed bear Jennifer had brought her last week. "I miss her every day," she said seriously. "But Daddy says Mommy is in heaven and watches over us, and that she would be happy to see Daddy smiling again." Jennifer looked at Michael, who was sitting in the armchair by the window, reading a newspaper. Indeed, something had changed in him over the past few weeks. The fatigue hanging over him had given way to quiet joy, and sparks of humor had reappeared in his eyes. "And I make Daddy smile?" Jennifer asked. "Very much," Sarah replied, clapping her hands. "When he talks about you, he makes these funny faces like a happy nightmare." "Sarah," Michael protested, blushing. "What? It's true," the girl laughed. Jennifer felt a warmth spread through her body. No one had spoken of her in terms of happiness for years. She was respected, admired, sometimes feared, but no one was happy because of her. That evening, when Sarah fell asleep, Jennifer and Michael went for a walk in the hospital garden. It was a December evening. The snow sparkled under the streetlights and the air was crisp and cold. "I have to tell you something," Jennifer began, stopping by a bench under an old oak tree. "I'm listening," Michael replied, standing in front of her. "For the last 5 years I thought I would never be happy again," she said quietly, looking at her hands. "After my family died, the world turned grey. The only thing that made sense was work, building an empire that would fill the void left by my family. Michael listened in silence, sensing the weight of her confession. "But since I met you two, since Sarah started calling me auntie," Jennifer's voice trembled. "For the first time in years, I feel like I'm needed not as a boss, but as a person." "You are," Michael said quietly, stepping closer. "Very needed." "Michael," Jennifer whispered, looking up at him. I love you." The words hung in the frosty air like crystal bells. Michael stood still for a moment, as if he couldn't believe what he had heard. "I love you too," he finally replied, cupping her face in his hands. "I love you for who you are, not for what you have." Their kiss was gentle and passionate at the same time, filled with everything they couldn't express in words. It was the kiss of two people who had found each other in someone else's love, who believed that it was possible to love again after loss. When they drew apart, Jennifer rested her forehead on his shoulder. "What happens now?" she whispered. "I don't know," Michael replied honestly, "but I know I want to find out with you. And Sarah? Sarah already considers you family, just like I do." Jennifer felt tears welling up in her eyes. Family, a word that carried so much pain, suddenly meant something beautiful again. "I want to take Sarah home for Christmas," she said suddenly, "but the doctors say she has to stay in the hospital." "No, listen," Jennifer interrupted him, and the determination he recognized from their first meeting appeared in her voice. "I'll hire a private nurse. I'll bring in all the medical equipment. We'll give her a real Christmas." Michael looked at her with a mixture of admiration and apprehension. "That will cost a fortune." "I have a fortune," Jennifer replied with a smile, "and for the first time in years, I know what I want to spend it on. But is it safe for Sarah? The best specialists will be with us. I promise you Sarah's safety is my priority." Michael looked at her for a long time, seeing genuine concern for his daughter in her eyes. "Okay," he finally said. "If the doctors agree." "They will," Jennifer replied with certainty in her voice. 2 days later, on December 23rd, a black limousine with a driver and medical equipment in a second vehicle stopped outside the main entrance of the hospital. Jennifer, dressed in a winter fur coat, stood next to Michael, who carried Sarah wrapped in a warm blanket. "Is this your house, Auntie Jen?" Sarah asked in awe as the limousine pulled up to the elegant mansion in the historic district of Boston. "Our house," Jennifer corrected her. "For these holidays, it's our house." The house was truly beautiful. A 2-story early 20th century villa surrounded by a garden with old trees and firs. A huge Christmas tree adorned with thousands of lights and over 17 feet tall stood in front of the house. "Oh my God," Michael whispered as he stepped inside. The interior of the house was lavishly furnished, yet warm. Jennifer had hired a decorator who transformed the cool modern interior into a true holiday home. A fireplace was burning in the living room, Christmas wreaths hung on the walls, and smaller Christmas trees stood in every room. But the most beautiful thing was what Jennifer had prepared for Sarah. The entire second floor had been turned into a Christmas wonderland. There was a huge tree reaching the ceiling, a mountain of presents beneath it, and a specially prepared medical bed nearby that looked like a princess's bed from a fairy tale. "Is all this for me?" Sarah asked in disbelief. "For us," Jennifer replied, sitting on the edge of the bed. "It's our first Christmas together." "And where does Daddy sleep?" "In the next room," Jennifer replied, blushing slightly. "And where do you sleep?" Jennifer looked at Michael, who smiled encouragingly. "I think nearby too," she replied, "so we can be close to you." That evening, when Sarah fell asleep under the eye of the private nurse, Jennifer and Michael sat in front of the fireplace in the living room, sipping sweet tea. "This is the most beautiful Christmas of my life," Michael said quietly. "Mine too," Jennifer replied. "For the first time in 5 years, I feel at home." "Because this is home," Michael said, taking her hand. "Wherever family is, they didn't yet know that their happiness would soon be severely tested." Chapter 4. The new year of 2024 greeted Jennifer Smith in a way she hadn't expected. For the first time in 5 years, she hadn't spent New Year's Eve at a business dinner with trading partners, but in the quiet of her home, watching the fireworks through the living room window with Michael and Sarah, who, despite the late hour, didn't want to go to sleep so she wouldn't miss the crossing into the new year. "Auntie Jen," Sarah said, sitting on Jennifer's lap, "will we still be a family in the new year?" "Forever," Jennifer replied, kissing the girl's forehead. "I promise." But the business world wasn't asleep. In the first week of January, Jennifer was summoned to an emergency meeting of her company's board of directors. In the elegant conference room of the Grand Beacon Hotel sat her associates and major shareholders, the people with whom she had built her empire over the last few years. "Jennifer," began David Williams, the vice president and her longtime associate, "we need to talk about the recent changes in your behavior." Jennifer sat at the head of the long mahogany table, dressed in her classic black suit, but something about her posture was different. Less tension, more calm. "What changes?" she asked calmly. "The fact that instead of focusing on the company's expansion, you're spending time in the hospital with some janitor and his sick child," said Patricia Johnson, owner of 20% of the shares, coldly. "Michael Johnson is my personal advisor," Jennifer replied, trying to maintain her composure. "Advisor?" Williams laughed bitterly. "Jennifer, this is ridiculous. That man has no education, no business experience. He has something more valuable." Jennifer interrupted him. "He has life wisdom and an honest heart." "Heart?" Patricia rolled her eyes. "Jennifer, we run a corporation, not a cat shelter for strays." Jennifer felt anger surge within her, but this time it was a different anger than 5 years ago. Not the cold, destructive anger, but the anger of a protector defending what she loved. "Michael and Sarah are my family," she said firmly. Silence fell. Everyone present looked at her in surprise. "Family?" Williams repeated. "Jennifer, do you realize what you're saying?" "Perfectly. That man is a troublemaker," interjected Robert Jones, another board member. "We checked him out. No college degree, debt-ridden, working 2 jobs. Because he loves his daughter and does everything to provide her with treatment," Jennifer sharply interrupted him. "Or because he saw an easy target in you," Williams said cynically. Those words hit Jennifer like a slap. "How dare you?" she asked, standing up from her chair. "Jennifer, be realistic," Williams continued, undeterred by her anger. "This man saw a rich, lonely woman and decided to take advantage of the situation. Even his sick daughter is—" "Enough!" Jennifer screamed, slamming her hand on the table. "Never dare to speak about Sarah that way again. And maybe you should never dare to prioritize personal affairs over the company's interests," Williams countered coldly. "What company interests?" "The contract with the European chain," Patricia said, opening a file of documents. "Value $200 million, signing planned for next week." Jennifer looked at the documents. "What about it?" "They want to pull out," Jones said. "Rumors about your affair with an employee have reached them. They consider it unprofessional." "It's not an affair," Jennifer said quietly. "It's love. To the business it makes no difference," Williams replied brutally. "They have concerns about your emotional stability as a business partner." Jennifer sat back down, feeling the world sway beneath her feet. This contract was crucial for the company's future. "What do you want me to do?" she asked quietly. "End this romance," Patricia said. "Go back to being the businesswoman we know." "And if I refuse?" Williams pulled another document from the file. "We already have the papers prepared to take control of the company in a situation where the CEO is unable to perform her duties due to personal reasons." Jennifer read the document with growing horror. Her own associates had prepared a conspiracy against her. "This is betrayal," she whispered. "This is business," Williams replied coldly. "The choice is yours, Jennifer. Your company or your family." Jennifer stood up from the table, feeling her legs tremble. "I need time to think." "You have until tomorrow," Patricia said. "Until tomorrow evening." That night, Jennifer walked around her house for a long time, unable to sleep. Through the living room windows, she saw the city she had conquered over the last few years. Everything she had worked for, everything she had built after her parents' death was at stake. At 3 in the morning, the phone rang. It was Michael. "Jennifer, is everything okay? Sarah woke up and said she had a dream you were crying." "Everything's fine," she lied. "Don't lie, I can hear it in your voice. Something's wrong." Jennifer sank onto the couch in front of the fireplace. "Michael, I might lose everything." "What are you talking about?" "The company. Everything I've worked for over the last few years." Michael was silent for a long moment. "And what do you have to do not to lose it?" "Lose you. And Sarah." Another silence, even longer. "I understand," he finally said quietly. "Michael, You don't have to say anything," he gently cut her off. "I understand. This company is your legacy, your identity. But you are my family, and we always will be. But you can't sacrifice your whole life for us." Jennifer was crying openly now. "What should I do?" "Follow your heart." "What if my heart tells me 2 different things?" "Then it means you haven't made a decision yet." The next day, Jennifer didn't go to work. Instead, she drove to the historic cathedral on the hill in Boston, where for the first time in years, she knelt before the altar and tried to talk to God. "I don't know what to do," she whispered, looking at the cross above the altar. "For 5 years I thought the company was all I had, but now I have a family." Before evening, she decided to go to the hospital to see Sarah. The girl was lying in bed, connected to the ventilator. Her condition had worsened. "Where were you?" Michael asked anxiously. "I called all day." "I was thinking," Jennifer replied, sitting by the bed and taking Sarah's small hand in hers. "Auntie Jen," Sarah whispered weakly, "Daddy says you might leave us." Jennifer felt as if someone had pierced her heart with a dagger. "Why would I leave you?" "Because you have important things," Sarah replied. "But I want you to stay. Very much. Sarah, please. You promised we'd be family forever." Jennifer looked at Michael, who was watching the entire scene with pain in his eyes. "I have to go," she said, standing up. "Jennifer," Michael began. "I have to make a decision." She interrupted him. "Goodbye." As she left the hospital, she heard Sarah's crying behind her. That evening, the board of directors gathered in the hotel conference room. Jennifer arrived promptly at 8 o'clock. She was wearing her most elegant suit. Her hair was styled in a perfect bun. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like the old Jennifer Smith, cold, determined, ruthless. "Have you made a decision?" Williams asked. Jennifer stood by the window looking at the city. "Yes," she said quietly, "I have." Chapter 5. Jennifer turned away from the window and looked at the people gathered around the table, people who for years had been her associates, friends, and who were now her adversaries. "Yes," she repeated more strongly, "I have made a decision." Williams smiled with satisfaction. "And?" "I resign as CEO." A silence fell so profound that one could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. "What?" Patricia asked, unable to believe her ears. "I resign as CEO of the company," Jennifer repeated calmly, "and I'm selling my shares." "Jennifer, are you insane?" Williams yelled, rising from his chair. "This is your company, your legacy." "No," Jennifer replied calmly. "My legacy is my family, and family is not for sale." "But," Jones began. "The decision is final," Jennifer cut him off. "The lawyer will bring the documents tomorrow. You want the company? You can have it, for the right price." Patricia looked at her as if she were a stranger. "This is because of that man. He manipulated you." "He reminded me who I am," Jennifer replied. "Who I want to be." "Jennifer, think about it," Williams pleaded. "This is your life." "No," she said quietly, heading for the door. "My life starts now." When she walked out of the hotel building, she felt a strange lightness. For the first time in 5 years, she didn't feel the burden of responsibility for the company, for the employees, for the profits and losses. She was free. But when she arrived at the hospital, she found that Michael and Sarah were already gone. "They were discharged an hour ago," the nurse informed her. "Mr. Johnson said they were going home." Home, the small apartment in the old industrial district she had seen only once. A third-floor walk-up in a block of old tenements where Michael and Sarah had lived for 3 years. When she knocked on the door, it was opened by a neighbor, an older woman in a homemade sweater. "Mr. Johnson left," she said, looking at Jennifer with clear disapproval. "With his daughter." "Where?" "None of my business. But he said it was for good." Jennifer felt her world collapse beneath her feet. They were gone. Sarah and Michael had simply vanished from her life. The next few days were the worst of her life, worse even than the period after her parents' death, because then she had anger to drive her. Now she had only emptiness. She sat in her mansion, surrounded by luxury but completely alone. The phones were silent. Her former associates were busy running the company, and Michael and Sarah had disappeared without a trace. For a week, she didn't leave the house. The housekeeper brought her meals she didn't eat. Her secretary called with questions about the formalities of the company sale, but Jennifer gave only brief answers. Finally, on a Saturday morning, as the snow fell softly outside the window, the doorbell rang. Jennifer, dressed in a bathrobe, opened the door herself. Michael stood in front of the house. He looked tired, but there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Determination. "I heard what you did," he said without preamble. "How?" she asked in a whisper, unable to believe she was seeing him. "The papers are running stories. 'Hotel Queen gives up empire for love,'" he quoted with a bitter smile. "But also because I got a call from your lawyer. You left money for Sarah's treatment." "That wasn't my money," Jennifer replied. "It was my family's money." Michael stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "Why did you do it?" he asked. "Because I love you both." "Jennifer, you gave up everything, your entire company." "Not everything," she replied quietly. "I kept what was most important. But now you have nothing. I have you, if you still want me." Michael looked at her for a long time, as if seeing her for the first time. "Do you know why I left with Sarah?" he asked. "Because I hurt you. Because I left you for money." "No," he replied, shaking his head. "I left because I was afraid you decided to stay with us out of regret, out of guilt, and that you would regret it for the rest of your life." Jennifer felt tears welling up. "And now? Now I see a woman who chose love over everything else, and that is the woman I can love for the rest of my life." "And Sarah?" "Sarah is waiting in the car. She was afraid to come out because she thought you were angry with us." Jennifer ran to the window, and indeed, in the old Ford parked in front of the house, sat a little girl in a pink jacket. "Go get her," she said, turning to Michael. Go get our daughter. When Sarah ran into the house, she threw herself into Jennifer's arms, crying, Auntie Jen, Daddy said we'd never see you again. We will never be separated again, Jennifer promised, hugging the girl. We are family. Really? Really? That evening, the three of them sat in front of the fireplace, Jennifer, Michael, and Sarah. For the first time in weeks, Jennifer felt complete. What will you do now? Michael asked. Without the company, Jennifer thought for a moment. I was thinking about starting a foundation, she said, for children with asthma, so no child has to suffer because they can't afford treatment. A foundation? Sarah asked. It's an organization that helps people, Jennifer explained, and will help kids like me. Yes, if you want to. I want to very much, Sarah cheered. And me? Michael asked. You'll be the foundation's director, Jennifer replied with a smile, because no one knows better how to help people. But I don't have the education. You have something better, Jennifer interrupted him. You have a heart. That night, when Sarah was asleep upstairs in her room, Jennifer and Michael talked about the future for a long time. Do you regret it? He asked. Regret what? Leaving the company, giving up everything you built. Jennifer looked at him in the firelight. For 5 years, I thought I was building an empire, she said quietly. But I was really building a prison of fear, loneliness, and pain. You and Sarah set me free from that prison. And now we're building something new, something better. We're building a family. Michael kissed her gently. I love you, he whispered. I love you too, and I always will. But they didn't know that outside the window, in the darkness, someone was watching them. Chapter 6. The spring of 2024 brought not only warmth and the first flowers in Jennifer's mansion garden, but also new challenges neither of them expected. The Breath of Hope Foundation, which Jennifer had started with Michael, was growing faster than anticipated. In 3 months, they had already helped 30 children with asthma, covering the costs of their treatment and providing necessary support to their families. Jennifer discovered something in herself she hadn't known throughout all her years in business. The joy that comes from selfless giving. Every child they managed to help, every family that could breathe a sigh of relief thanks to their support, brought her more satisfaction than all the hotel profits. She sat in her new office that May morning, much more modest than the one at the hotel, but filled with warmth and photos of the children the foundation had helped. On her desk lay a stack of letters from parents who were grateful their children had been saved. Auntie Jen, Sarah called out, running into the office with a bouquet of dandelions she had picked in the garden. These are for you. Thank you, sweetheart, Jennifer replied, taking the girl onto her lap. They're absolutely beautiful. Sarah, whose health had significantly improved thanks to the new treatment, looked like a completely different child than the one Jennifer had met in the hospital 8 months ago. Her cheeks were a healthy pink, her eyes sparkled with joy, and her laughter echoed throughout the house. Daddy says the TV lady is coming today, Sarah said. Yes, Jennifer confirmed. She wants to do a news segment about our foundation. And can I be on TV? If Daddy agrees. Michael walked into the office at that moment, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a glass of juice for Sarah. Agree to what? He asked, setting the coffee in front of Jennifer and kissing her cheek so naturally, as if he had been doing it for years. Sarah wants to be in the news segment, Jennifer explained. Michael pondered. And what will you tell the journalist? That Auntie Jen and Daddy are the best people in the world, Sarah replied without hesitation. That might be a problem, Michael said with a smile. We're already famous across the country. Indeed, their story had become a media sensation. Hotel Queen Abandons Empire for Love was one of the milder headlines. Most articles focused on how the wealthy businesswoman gave up everything for a simple worker and his sick daughter. But Jennifer no longer cared about it. She had found something she hadn't known for years, the peace that comes from living in accordance with one's own values. At noon, the journalist arrived with a TV crew. Mary Brown, a young woman in her 30s, was preparing a piece about unusual love stories for the show In Our Town. Miss Smith, she began as the cameras were rolling, do you regret your decision to step down from the company? Not for a second, Jennifer replied honestly. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm doing something truly important. But you lost a fortune worth hundreds of millions. I gained something priceless, a family, Jennifer interrupted her, looking at Michael and Sarah, who were sitting beside her. And you, Mr. Johnson, the journalist turned to him, do you feel awkward that your partner was one of the wealthiest women in the country? Michael thought for a moment. At first, yes, he replied honestly. But then I understood that who we were isn't as important as who we are now and who we want to be in the future. And what are your plans for the future? Jennifer and Michael exchanged glances. "Growing the foundation," Jennifer replied. "We want to help as many children as possible." "And getting married," Sarah interjected to everyone's surprise. "Sarah," Michael blushed. "What? Auntie Jen and Daddy love each other, so they should get married, right?" The journalist smiled widely. "How about that, Mr. Johnson? Are you planning a wedding?" Michael looked at Jennifer, and she nodded with a smile. "Yes," he said quietly. "We are planning one." "When?" "Soon," Jennifer replied. "Very soon." After the interview ended, when the TV crew had left, the three of them were alone in the mansion garden. Sarah was playing on the swing Michael had hung from the old oak tree, and they sat on a bench watching her. "Do you really want to marry me?" Michael asked quietly. "You didn't ask," she replied with a smile. "Jennifer Smith," Michael said solemnly, suddenly kneeling on one knee in front of the bench. "Will you be my wife?" "Yes!" Sarah screamed, before Jennifer could answer, and ran towards them. "Yes, yes, yes!" "And what do you say?" Michael asked Jennifer. "Yes," she replied in a whisper, tears in her eyes. "Yes, I want to very much." Michael pulled a small box from his pocket. "It's not a Tiffany ring," he said, opening the box that held a modest gold ring with a small diamond chip. "It's perfect," Jennifer replied, holding out her hand. "Will we really be a family?" Sarah asked, looking at the ring on Jennifer's finger. "We already are family," Michael replied, embracing both his women. The wedding took place 2 months later in July at the historic cathedral in Boston. It was modest, only close friends and a few of Jennifer's former employees who remained loyal despite everything. Jennifer looked beautiful in a simple white dress, but the most beautiful thing was her smile, sincere, joyful, full of love. Michael, dressed in a navy suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. Sarah was the flower girl, in a pink dress, carrying a basket of rose petals. When the minister asked if there were any impediments to the marriage, the girl shouted with all her might, "None! They love each other very much." The entire church burst into laughter, and Jennifer and Michael cried with happiness. After the ceremony, during the modest reception in the mansion garden, Jennifer gave a toast. "For years I thought happiness could be bought with money," she said, raising a glass of sparkling cider. "I thought success was the only measure of a person's worth. But this man and this little girl taught me that true happiness costs nothing, but is worth more than all the treasures in the world." "And I," Michael added, embracing his wife, "I learned that love knows no boundaries, neither social nor financial. Only what we have in our hearts matters. And I learned that if you love very much, you can do anything," Sarah added, raising her glass of juice. Everyone burst into laughter and applause. 5 years later, the Breath of Hope Foundation became one of the most important charities in the Northeast. It had helped over 1,000 children, and Jennifer and Michael were honored with numerous awards for their social work. Sarah, who was 13, was a healthy, happy girl who declared she wanted to become a doctor to help sick children, just as they helped their families. Jennifer often thought about how her life would have turned out if Michael hadn't had the courage to stop her that December evening at the hotel. She would probably still be a wealthy, lonely woman, locked in the prison of her own success. But fate wanted otherwise. Fate gave her a second chance at love, at family, at true happiness, and she took that chance, paying the highest price one could pay, giving up everything she had to gain everything she needed. "Do you regret it?" Michael asked her one evening as they sat on the porch of their new home. No longer a mansion, but a cozy house in the Boston suburbs, where they ran the foundation together. "Regret what?" she asked, resting her head on his shoulder. "That life, the luxury, the power." Jennifer looked at Sarah, who was doing homework in the living room, bathed in the warm light of the lamp. "You see that?" she asked, pointing to the girl. "Yes, that is my luxury, my power, my wealth, and I wouldn't trade it for that old life for a second." Michael kissed the top of her head. "I love you," he whispered, "and I love you forever." And somewhere in heaven, the happy souls of their loved ones, Jennifer's parents, Michael's wife, smiled, seeing that love truly can conquer all. The end.